Oh, hi! This week, I'm going to show you how to make this color blocked cardigan. I literally just finished sewing it. I forgot to make the cuffs longer, which is completely my mistake. I do have extra material though, so it will be done. And that is honestly the easiest thing to fix on this entire garment, so not upset about it. And I should have known better. I was just like too in the groove of making this. And it's been long enough since I made my last one that I completely spaced all the things. I did use the Bertha cardigan pattern from the Make It Simple book by Tilly and the Buttons. I just seem to get her teaching style. It clicks with me. So yeah, I get to make cool shit like this because of the stuff she puts out. Not sponsored, just so happy to have found a pattern company that like fucking makes sense for me. More the instructions than the actual pieces, because I can usually fudge something together with the pattern pieces once I know like what goes where, but the instructions on how to put the things together, I get so overwhelmed and I feel like I'm blacking out trying to read some of the things, like I'm not even reading English sometimes. Anyways, this is a super fun sew and it took me about 2 hours start to finish, including cutting time. So her estimated cutting time is 40 minutes, sewing time hour and 35. Yeah, I feel like I was right in that pocket, if not a little shorter. This is like dolman sleeve raglan situation. There's cuffs, there's hem bands, there's this neckband, and it did take some prior sketching to decide what pieces were going to come out of which fabric. I took my time cutting everything out. It wasn't a rush job or anything, and this material here, it used to be this huge oversized like caftan type thing. It's cozy and I do like the fabric. It's very soft. The cut of it though, it keeps getting stuck under the wheels of my rolling chair. If I wear it in here, it used to be my like dedicated studio shawl, but that wasn't working for that, and I was getting it caught in the car door and everything. Like it was a little too flappy for my lifestyle, so I thought making it into something like this would get me to wear it, you know? And I had this black fleece left over from a project I did for someone else. Very excited to use up the fleece that has built up in the shop, because a lot of my custom orders have been out of fleece, and when there's anything left over from that, it is bulky as shit. I definitely have some fibers in my eye though, which is a fun game to play. Okay, I got the fluff out of my eye. God damn, it's that time of year too where the dandelion fluffs are like snow adrift in the air. It's infuriating. My eyes are cursed inside and outside. I would super recommend, if you're using like a floppy loose knit like this, to use a rotary cutter, because my goodness, this was wily. I cut the front pieces with the fabric doubled up and then cut the back on the fold. I tried to get it straight, but again, it was super wobbly. And once I realized that the sleeves were going to be black, I figured doing a stripy cuff would be a good move. And then yeah, the sleeves, the bottom band, and then the neck band are all out of the black fleece. And these are all the pieces laid out. I'm really happy with how the alternating looks. It feels like a member's first jacket or something. And some of the pieces are a little big, but overall, I don't think it even uses that much fabric. As for assembly, I have to lay this out. I can't just like grab the piece and pin like I can with other things. I have to like have it flat on the table, lay the pieces out to make sure everything's flopping over the right direction. So I started with the back piece. I did make sure to notch the back side of the sleeves for this particular part. So I attached the back side of the sleeve to the back top slopes of the back piece. Can I say back a few more times? Did a narrow short zigzag stitch. I try to keep my zigzag stitches as long as they are wide. If I was basting anything, I lengthened it, but I didn't widen it. So yeah, once I attached that, I then attached the front panels to the fronts of the sleeves, and then I just serged everything all at once because none of these seams were overlapping. The perk of this book is it does encourage you to batch step things, so if you have a bunch of ironing, you can save up instead of like sewing one thing, going over and pressing it out, sewing another thing, going back over and pressing it out. If those aren't interfering with each other, I do the same thing with my serger and my machine, even though it's literally a matter of moving this far away. Next was lining up the side seams, so coming up the left and right side, and that went right into the bottom side of the sleeve. Now these are oversized, they're not like fitted to the underarm area. It is batwing shaped, I believe is what these are called. So if you're new to sleeves, this seems like a really good way to go about it. It has the raglan top aspect and then yeah, super roomy down here. Okay, so once I got the underarm thing stitched and then serged that, our core garment was constructed. So I set that aside and I made the cuffs and the bands. So for the cuffs, I stitched that right sides together so that it made a little tube, and you don't have to serge this part because the seam is going to be completely hidden on the inside. None of that'll be exposed. So then you take that seam, fold it onto itself, and then like roll fold the cuff around, so you're folding it in half, wrong sides together. I don't like messing with multiple layers flopping around, so when I'm stitching a double layered thing like a cuff or a hemband or whatever to another something like the sleeve end, I like to baste those two layers together so that I'm not trying to finagle both layers of the cuff and the sleeve end when I'm stitching it to the garment, because fuck that. I've messed up too many things and had to redo it. And yes, this is an extra step, but it makes that so much less of a headache, and that is worth it to me. I like to enjoy the sewing process. So basted the cuff together, and then I put the hemband together. Now I messed up here because I didn't need to stitch the short ends like I did. I needed to just fold it in half, baste the long edge, and leave it at that. Why I did the short ends, I wasn't thinking ahead. I could have looked at the book with the instructions. I did for the first couple steps and then abandoned ship for some reason because I got too cocky, I think is what happened. Whereas for the neckband, once you sew the right sides together at that little V shape thing that makes the center back, you do need to stitch the short ends like at the bottom right sides together and then flip that out, and then I basted that whole open edge as well, but that's the only one you need to do that to. I don't know why I did it to the hemband. That only made things way worse for myself because I doubled the layers of fleece of the hemband where it was going to attach to 2 more layers of fleece, and my machines were not happy stitching through that. So don't do what I did. Once I made all the bands and the cuffs, I then attached everything. So cuffs went on first. I did serge that once they were attached, and then I hate when the seam allowance is like flopping all over on a cuff. So I did a zigzag stitch. I was gonna break out the twin needle, but also like very overwhelmed with things to be doing this week. So I just didn't want to take the time to fuck with it, because when there's bulky fabric, it skips stitches. There's a lot of like going back and redoing stuff. It's not a quick, smooth action. It's something I try to practice on, but I haven't made much progress with like thick fabrics, and maybe that's just what twin needles can't do very well. It's not their fault. I mean, it's definitely my fault, whatever I'm doing to it. The twin needles can only do what the twin needles can do. But I just stuck with the zigzag. It's fine. If someone is coming up to me and nitpicking that I did zigzag stitches for this type of thing instead of a different finishing stitch, I don't need to talk to that person anymore. So it's fine. I'm not worried about it. Anyways, all to say, I did a zigzag stitch as like a top stitch that still had some give to it, because I got big hands but tiny wrists, so it needs to stretch to get this through it and then suck back in when it gets around my tiny forearms. But I had the seam allowance pushed towards the actual sleeve so that every time my hand goes through it, it's not like pushing the seam allowance to fold over towards the cuff, which is already the bulkier part of the sleeve, and it drives me bananas. I did that similar top stitching with all of the bands once I attached them. So the hemband was next, that went across the bottom, and I stitched the seam allowance up towards the back panel of the sweater. And then I did do a lot of pinning just because this material is so floppy, and I had to like really make sure it was evenly distributed across, because if I had just stitched it, things would have gone so hinky. Every aspect would have been lopsided. So I did take my time with attaching things together for once, because I'm not a big pinner anymore. I used to be, but especially when you're working with like quilting cotton or something, it just goes where it needs to go. But not this shit. It's a loner, Dottie, a rebel. So anyway, started at the center back, worked my way down, and attached it all the way to the hemband, like so. And I really like how that corner ends up looking, especially with the color blocking. Here's the finished sweater. It is everything I was hoping for, honestly. Other than adjusting the cuffs, like I said in the beginning, I'm really jazzed about how it came out. I do think I might lengthen another version just to see what that looks like, but it does feel Letterman jacket almost. Like I need a big applique letter of the high school I went to, or my own name. What one is it? I don't know. I was not a jock if you couldn't figure that out on your own. And there is a pattern on how to add pockets. This stuff is too thin. I didn't want to fuck with that, but maybe on the next one, if it's all this thicker fleece, I have a whole array of things to put together for more of these. I'll keep you updated on how slot pockets. Possibly one of those 3 words. Oh boy. Well, considering this is leftover fabric from a custom order and a sweater I liked but never wore, I'm pretty pleased with how this came out, and I did manage to line up the stripes all right, which is troublesome, especially on floppy fabric. I'm on a pretty good roll with successful projects that I'm like real hyped about this week, and that has felt so nice. I did some new artwork that I'm sending out to my mail time patrons. I don't know if they'll have it by the time this video is up, so I don't want to mention what it is yet. My favorite like traditional 2-dimensional art that I've ever made. Oh, so happy with how it came out. It was one of those things, I was looking for some art to send them all, and I wasn't finding what I wanted on Etsy, because sometimes I will go seek out other small artists and like gift them things, but I just wasn't seeing what I wanted and decided to make it myself, and it actually went pretty well, so that felt nice. And then the custom shit gifts I made this week. It's a dumb idea, but I'm really, really jazzed about it. And the fact that I get to mess around with projects I wouldn't otherwise have time for or the inspiration for. Like if I hadn't been looking for art to gift patrons, I wouldn't have made art that I'm really proud of. And I'm feeling very creatively satisfied. A glorious thing when it's happening. So thank you all for letting me do that with my time. It means the absolute world. And if you would like to join some of the chats over on the Discord where people are sharing their current projects and their little crafting assistance and just general chatter about furniture and things, like the coolest couch in the world, and you know, sometimes just bitching about the weather because it's been a little weird recently. The patrons opened up the Discord to everyone, so just shoot me a message on like Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, an email if you would like, and I will send you an invite link. I'm actually heading out to hang out with some friends, like in real life, in the meat space. I realized it has been over a year since I have pet a cat, because I've seen other people's dogs out like in the neighborhood, or friends that I have met up with distantly, or like visiting my sister across the driveway or some such thing. So I've gotten some like other dog snuggles in, but yeah, no cats. So that's gonna maybe be a little emotional actually, because I am team both cats and dogs equally. I like them all. Anyways, I'm gonna try to not be my usual 15 minutes late to everything, and I will see you all back here with another video next Friday. Thank you so much for hanging out. I'm not gonna see the back, so why do I care?